This is Daniel Eli. I am actually talking right now to a spirit called Marcy. Marcy is sort of similar to me. She understands me because she's an ascended master, but she was called crazy when she lived on Earth, right? People thought she was crazy. That's why we have a common ground here. Now, people think I'm crazy, right? They think I'm delusional and schizophrenic, even though I'm actually not. Now, this is a conversation. If you look at this video, there's no one else in my room that you can see on camera, right? But it looks like I'm just sort of talking to myself and rambling on, and like a crazy person would do, right? That you see, like walking down the street, you see people yelling to themselves. They're actually talking to spirits. So, but I'm also recording this, so if you want me to occasionally look at the camera and say hello or something, that's what I'll do to make sure that I'm aware, I'm conscious that I'm being recorded. So it's not schizophrenia what I'm doing. It's actually really a part of my life now is telepathic communication with ascended masters. So here's the recording. This is made on November 30th, close to midnight, and it's a full moon too, which is a very special time. So here I am sitting in the back wall, waiting God's conversation here. The time I rode a bicycle? What? Oh, when I first learned how to ride a bicycle? Yeah, okay. All the people watching here. When I was a kid, about 5 years old, there was an incident where I had a dream. I was incapable of riding a two-wheel bike. Now, I was capable of riding with four wheels, but I couldn't ride two-wheel. I lost my balance if I tried. Then one night, I had this very profound, memorable dream that I still remember to this day, of me riding a two-wheel bike, and I was free, and I was feeling happy riding this bike. Guess what happened the very next day when I woke up? I took off the training wheels on the bike, and I said, heck, I'm going to try riding this bike. So I got on the bike, and it started riding, and I was able to ride it. All of a sudden, just instantaneously like that. So that was like a first kind of miracle, precognitive dream, which is symbolic, or not symbolic, but representative of what I've experienced now. It's 21st century, Daniel. Oh yeah, here's the Ascended Master Marcy just told me to tell you guys about the Tonka toys in the sandbox. Now, when I was a kid, I don't know how old I was, maybe it was 1977, I believe, when I was perhaps 6 years old, 8 years old or so, around that era. Now, I went into a sandbox in the park to play. Now, I noticed that there was Tonka toys, a whole bunch of trucks and everything in the sandbox, but there's no other kids around. So I played with the Tonka toys, and I left them there, right? I just sort of walked home after that. But see, someone left them there, right? They were abandoned, perfectly good Tonka toys. Now, I did not steal them, and no one else stole them, because they're kids' toys, right? Kids are innocent. They're innocent of heart. I don't wish to harm any innocent people. To rectify the situation, I'm going to explain a little about childhood feelings. Okay, they thought that I was a child molester. I've been called a child molester. Now, I'm pausing for a reason, right? Do I look like a child molester? Can you judge based on appearance? Can you judge based on holding a hand? If I held a 15-year-old hand, would that mean child molestation? Honestly, think about it for a second. We're looking at let's say a 14-year-old girl, I'm walking on the street and a 14-year-old girl passes by on opposite direction, walking up to me with huge boobs pulled up like this, right? And then I glance down as I'm walking, not as a sexual thing, but more as me thinking, girl, you should cover up, right? But then the girl thinks that I'm sexually hitting on her, that I'm some sort of child molester, right? Now, I want to explain something what happened 10 years ago. Well, by the way, I want to first say right off the bat, I have never molested a child, ever. Not even once. Never even tried hitting on a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 2, 1. Never have I done that. Period. That is the honest to God truth. Now I'm going to tell you an experience, knowing that this is going to be made public, okay? Now I have a record, right? I've done some nasty things in the past. However, something happened where I perceived that I was falsely accused of a crime that I didn't really intend to do, or maybe I intended something to happen. I don't know what I intended here, but I'll explain what happened briefly. As my memory is foggy because I was sort of drinking alcohol at the time. But what happened was I walked into a park. It was McCall, Idaho. What county was that? I can't remember. Anyways, I was slightly intoxicated, actually very intoxicated, and I walked up to two 15-year-old girls wearing bikinis in a park. Now, I was approaching not just them, but a lot of other people, and I was giving like palm readings, right? It was not just 15-year-old girls, it was everyone else too. So it was just sort of a casual thing for me. Now, I approached these two girls. Now, admittedly, I was attracted to their body, but remember, I was approaching other people as well, like 30-year-old men as well, and I'm not gay or anything. Okay, so I just approached these two women. Now I remember saying, like, hey, do you mind if I give you a palm reading? Because I was learning how to read palms at that point. And I told them I was an angel, and then but I was also intoxicated. They probably smelled the alcohol in my breath or something. Someone overheard us talking. Now the thing is, I gave her a palm reading, so I had to touch her hand to do that. I read her palm, and I told one of them something that scared them. Now, someone may have overheard this, but they assumed something wrong about this whole situation. I don't know all the details, recalling back the details because I was drunk at the time. But I simply left that scenario. I just walked away, after the palm reading. And I went and sat down. Next thing I know, like 5 minutes later, I'm being handcuffed by a police who walks up behind me, and suddenly I was thinking, like, what am I being arrested for? Being drunk in public or something? And I was charged with battery, unlawful touching of a minor. Yet I did not touch them sexually. I did not touch their breasts. I did not touch their bums or anything. I did not touch their body except for their palms. But I was giving a spiritual palm reading. So obviously I'm going to touch their palm. That just seems normal and natural, doesn't it? Speaking of normal and natural, see, I was falsely accused of battery because since when is giving a palm reading battery? What is wrong with that situation? Who created that kind of situation where a 30-year-old man would be arrested for battery for giving 15-year-olds a palm reading? That's what happened to me a decade ago. Now that record is on my record and it makes me now look like a child molester. Everyone imagines that I've molested children, yet I haven't. I'm innocent of any kind of charges like that, or accusations like that at all. So those kind of false accusations hurt innocent people. Now the thing is, children are innocent. Was I innocent in thought? I'm going to admit to you, no. I have to tell the truth here. I was attracted to their physical bodies. They had bodies of women. I was undressing him with my eyes. I admit that. Am I a pervert because of that? I'll let you consider the following. And I'm going to say this clearly and concisely for the record. For the vast bulk of human history, 30, 40, 50-year-old men had sex with and married 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old young women. Not young girls. I'm not talking about 3-year-olds here. That is a completely different story. These are people who have adult bodies. They may not be adult in maturity level, but they're old enough to have children and to get married. In most cultures throughout most of human history. Now, do you think it's a crime? Is it a crime to look at a 14-year-old's or 15-year-old's breast and be sexually aroused as a man? Does that make me a pervert if I do that? In God's eyes? No. In humans' eyes, in our particular American culture, that is considered something immoral. You see, we're raised and brainwashed into certain attitudes. I'm going to give you something, again, I have to focus on this because this is a huge issue with me in this incarnation. You see, I'm sexually aroused to 14, 15-year-olds, yet in this incident that happened 10 years ago, I was truly innocent. I did not sexually touch them or hit on them. I looked at their breasts. That's about all I did. I gave them a spiritual palm reading. Yet at the same time, I had the desire, but I did not act on that desire except for the spiritual palm reading. Now, because people assume to connect to two dots, right? They assume, oh, he has a desire and he's giving a spiritual palm reading, so-called. He must be lying, right? He must have really been doing something, right? Yeah, the fact of the matter is I didn't do that. And now my record is marred because of that. I need to be exonerated of that crime because here's why I pled guilty. Normally a charge like that should be dropped, right? Because I was just touching her hand. There's something more to the story. I'll tell you that more to the story. I'm going to tell you something. I was found guilty of that crime not by a judge, but by my own declaration, which I had to do to get out of jail 3 weeks earlier than expected. You see, I was homeless and unemployed at the time with no money. Now, I'd already sat in jail for 3 weeks. I simply did not want to spend another 3 weeks there. If I pled not guilty, the charge would have been dropped. However, I would have to rot in jail for another 3 weeks for a charge that should have been dropped. I did not plead not guilty. I pled guilty not because I was guilty, but rather I had to get out of jail to publish the final book of Daniel because it was on a laptop computer and all the data was there. And that was the only copy of my book that I had on that laptop. If I stayed 3 weeks in jail, that book would have been lost forever. It would have had to have been rewritten. And I don't think I would be able to rewrite a 444-page book. Because of that, I pled guilty because of God, basically. That book is a divine book. I was let out of jail early, 3 weeks early. And now, because of that, everyone thinks I'm a child molester. Why? What did I do wrong? Look at a child? Is it illegal or immoral to look at a child? What if I walk down the street and kids are with their parents or something, and I just look at them and I smile, right? And just wave hello. Does that make me a child molester? Think about it. In our society, that seems to be the case. You see, you've been brainwashed by media to beware of child molesters on every corner of every street they think they're everywhere, right? You dress differently like I do in robes or something. Religious robes, by the way. They're not child molester robes. You know, if I walk by an elementary school in a robe, does that mean I'm a child molester? No. It doesn't. I'm going to tell you what happened to an elementary school. True story. I got fed up with all these kind of accusations and false assumptions about me that there's an elementary school just shortly walking distance from my house. Now at 4 in the morning one day, it's like a Saturday morning, there's no kids around, no traffic around, I grabbed a can of paint and a paintbrush, house paint. I walked onto the elementary school property with business cards, with my address and real name on the business card and phone number and everything. Now I wrote on those cards, I said, "Lay off, I am not a child molester. I wish to work with children in order to teach them certain things about life before we ascend." Things like that, right? I left a whole bunch of cards around the elementary school so that the adults can find them when they open the school that morning. Now what I did with the paint, in the middle of the night, it was all dark, I painted angels on the wall, the mural. They had a mural of a sky and trees. I painted big angels about this large, that large, that large, on the wall. Winged angels, gray colored. Now, I simply left, and then I came back in the morning when the school was open. I deliberately did this, by the way. I was playing with fire but not getting burned. There's a song called that. Playing with fire but not getting burned. Oh, how I did. Playing with fire but not getting burned. Now I walked into that school and I said, "Hey, I wanted to tell you something, man, about those angels last night." I said it like that, right? "About those angels last night." I said, "Are you going to call the police on me?" And they just looked and blinked at me, right? They just said, they didn't know what to make of what I was doing. I walked into there and said that. There's no kids around. These were adults. I said, "Are you going to call the police on me for what I did last night?" I simply walked out and then went home. As expected, the police show up at my door about an hour later. The police were very casual about this. They sat me down and talked to me for a minute. Now, they did not charge me or arrest me with any charge whatsoever. They talked to me, and I told them something very memorable. I said, "People think I'm a pervert or something, sir." And they said, they didn't want to explain too much, but it's very obvious, like that they knew what was going on around here. So I said to them, I said, "Is that a reflection of me, or rather is it a reflection of human society, of what everyone thinks? Their reaction to people who dress differently, people who maybe have thought desires, but never act on them or something? Or what the collective thinks? Like perversion, sexual perversion because of the internet porn, loss of innocence versus innocence lost, reborn innocence. I'm a born-again virgin. Except for, like, touching myself, which I do, admittedly, right? I think we all do, all men do, basically. Women do it less, but men do. Now, that aside, what was I saying? See, I lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry. You see, this is an important topic. Well, yeah, I told him, see, loss of innocence, right? When I was about 7 years old, I remember I came of age, and I knew the difference between right and wrong. Now, at a certain age, there's a reason why there's age of consent, because there's a responsibility if you're going to, like, romance a 14-year-old, and you better be ready.